It's been really exciting watching the European response from August to now because it's completely turned around. I mean, 360 is an understatement. It's kind of wrapped around a few times, I
I
think.
see. Okay.
It's also a good opportunity for us to help draw the contrast between what Europe, as a climate leader for the past 2 decades, has done versus the US. Europe's strategy, while they've very much celebrated and invested in clean tech, has been foremost an emissions reduction strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Their goal says, we want to cut emissions by 10% over a certain period. What do we need to replace to do so? And that has great results. The EU has cut some of its emissions. Some of it was exported abroad through carbon leakage, but a lot of it was earnestly cut through, say, power generation, taking coal, turning it into wind. The problem is, from an industrial perspective, if you're here in the UK, which they like to celebrate their climate transition into wind, if you shut down a domestic coal plant and you replace it with a wind turbine, great, your emissions are cut. But if you bought that wind turbine abroad, manufactured by foreign workers in a foreign factory, that hasn't helped your industry. You haven't supported those jobs domestically and so forth. That's where the IRA very much says you need to do this domestically with domestic workers. So at first, the European Union was upset because the provisions in IRA made sure it was domestic workers, domestic factories, excludes eligibility for EU facilities, of course, and EU factories and jobs, which the EU hasn't done to its trading partners, because this is quite openly not in line with WTO rules. The WTO called it, compared it to doping in sports, the Davos. They talked about how we won't engage in a race to the bottom. But what's happened over the past several months is quite quickly, the US has brought in billions and tens of billions and now hundreds of billions of capital investment into its advanced manufacturing sector. So it's changed the EU's minds a lot by saying, well, we're not going to shame America into dropping this. Maybe we should actually mimic them. So first there was a Euro Fit for 55 plan that then evolved into the Green Deal industrial plan. And now you have President of France talking about the need to re-industrialize the continent and build gigafactories and so forth. So in practice, what they've done is they've waived EU state aid rules. So there was until this waiver, you couldn't, as a country, subsidize a domestic producer that's just, say, Austrian. If you offered a subsidy, you would have to be eligible for all of the EU members. The problem is it's hard to convince your voters that you should raise taxes, generate money, and then that might go to your historical rival across the way. They've said, for us to really drive the level of investment that we've seen in the US, we're going to need to help match that with some of these subsidies. So they've waived the rules, and now larger or wealthier countries, particularly France, has been a big leader in this, is raising capital and subsidizing through production or investment tax credits, investments into the domestic economy.